All right, folks. So, how do you feel doing those questions? Not bad? All right, so who feels it on this first one? All right, Christy, help me.
Your principal is 3,500.
Principal is 3,500. Okay, good.
The rate is 6.5.
Rate 6.5%.
5 years.
Compounded daily for 5 years, right? Okay.
So I looked up at the chart.
Where did you go to look up the chart?
I went to 6.5%, and the
What page did you go to?
no, I went to the last page 36.
Page 36.
Sorry.
Good. Please note, why did you go to page 36,
Because it
Christy?
said daily.
Because it said compound daily, okay? That's the special part of the table that is dedicated to computing daily compound interest calculations, okay? So if you see any sort of compound daily phrase anywhere on the test or the homework, that's the page you go to. Done. Okay? That's like 3 points. Please don't piss them away. Okay? So, when you went to that table, what did you look up?
6.5% for 5 years, and it was 1.3840.
1.3840. And what did you do with that number?
I times the principal, and I came up with 4,844.
4844, straight up.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay? So compound daily, it's just remembering that table, the specific table for compound daily exists, and that's the table that you use. Okay? Again, put a little sticky note on your packet. Make sure that you know that's the special page to use. Alright. How about the second one? I need to buy a new car in 3.5 years. Who's helping me with this one? All right, Steve, step up.
So we're going backwards.
Going backwards. So what column are we going to use?
We're going to use 12-3.
All right, good.
Present value.
So we're going backwards. So we're going to use column 12-3. Awesome.
Okay, so what I did is I just marked page, period, and table. So
Okay.
page is 6% divided by 4 because it's compounded quarterly.
6% divided by 4 because it's compounding quarterly. Cool. So what page were we on?
1.5%.
1.5%. Awesome.
The period is 3.5 years times 4 is 14 periods.
3.5 years, 4 quarters per year, 14 periods. Awesome.
And my table was, I write it differently, so I go 24,000 times 0.8119.
8119.
Which equals 19,485.60.
Give that to me one more time.
19,485.60.
And again, what does that number mean to you? What is it?
That means that would be the number that I would need to invest today
Uh-huh.
in order to get that money that I wanted in 3.5 years.
All right, excellent. So if I invested just a shade under,
Yes.
under 19,500, I will have 24 grand in 3.5 years if I'm earning 6% compounded quarterly. Okay?
I love this chapter.
This is the fun chapter, folks, because it's all about earning compound interest, right? That's the joy. I mean, honestly, this is my favorite topic of the entire class because this is all about getting free money, right? That's what compound interest is. Is you putting your money away so that you can get free money out of it, right? I mean, that's
Awesome.
yes. That's exactly what we all want to be able to do, is get free money. And more of it. And that's the way compound interest works. Okay? But again, reading the questions and making sure you can tell which way am I going. Forwards, backwards, right? I'll need a certain amount of money in the future. That's a a standard keyword that you guys can look for that says, hey, I'm probably starting to go backwards, right? Because I need this much in a certain amount of time, hence, I know what I need in the future, I need to go back to the present to figure out where I am. Alright? And again, just helpful hints. Alright. I like this one just because it's a fun set of numbers to play with, right? So, I invested $1/8 of $1 million into a company that's going to pay me 10% compounded yearly or annually. Same thing. And I want to know how much interest will I earn in 10 years. Alright? Who's doing this one for me? You got it, Daniel? Okay, help me out.
Okay, so figure out what page you're on. It would just be like you take the 10% interest and you divide it by the number of periods, which was yearly, so it'd be 1, so it'd be 10 again.
Okay, exactly. We're actually staying on the 10%, right?
And then it would also be row 10 because it was 10 years and it was also done the annual
Once
quarter.
a year.
So you just go to there and you do 125,000 and then times 2.5937
Times 125,000.
and that comes to 324,212.50. But they want to know how much interest you earned, and that was actually
What number is this, technically?
This is the future value.
All right, good. So note, when you use the table, folks, you're getting the future value, how much you will have in the future. So technically, this is the principal and the interest. So if I just want the interest,
You have to minus 125,000, which
Yeah.
was the original amount, and it's 199,212.5.
now that's some free money, folks, right?
I want to do that.
This is the example I like to use for people to point out why people who have money will always have money, all right? Because this is what you do. Once you've got, say, $100,000 to invest, you start looking for places that will pay you this kind of interest. And folks, when businesses are investing in other businesses, this is often the interest that they will provide the other business. Usually those two businesses are kind of in bed together already anyways. So, one of them will be making a type of product that the other one uses, or they're complementary goods that go together, right? So it would be like stereo guys and, speaker guys. Would those two companies invest in each other back and forth? Of course, right? It's also a way for businesses to hide profits by sharing it with their friends, because 10%, you don't think that happens? You know it happens, right? I mean, that's exactly how it works in a lot of businesses. In order for them to hide some of their profits, they'll actually take out these kind of loans from businesses that are connected to them in some fashion, and then they can hide those profits by basically paying them interest on the loans, right? I mean, there's lots of sneaky games that business does in order to hide its money from the tax man, right? I mean, would you want to have to pay taxes on $200,000? No. So if you have to pay it as interest to one of your friends' companies, not only are you paying interest, so guess what you do with all this interest payment? You actually write it off on your taxes, and your buddy gets $200,000 in the process. Who, of course, will say, "Oh, really? Do you need extra stuff every now and then? Sure, I'll help you out because you're paying me $200,000 in interest." Right? I mean, this is very much so a business-oriented type of concept. All right. So and it's also why people who have lots of money continue to have lots of money, because if you've got 125 to invest, it's easier to find this kind of an interest rate, and you make good money. And are they working to get this $200,000 over 10 years? No. All they're doing is sitting on their thumbs and collecting checks. Sigh. Okay, sorry. I get a little carried away. All right, so Of course, the idea is that eventually that will be all of us, right? I mean, right? We'll all have $125,000 to just invest randomly into a business, right?
Don't do
Well, it would be nice. Anyways, all right. So how about this next one? I have an account that earns 4% compounded quarterly interest. What is the APY for this account? You guys remember the trick for APY?
Okay, so I'll do it.
Okay, Kristen.
So I took 4% page
Okay.
and I went down to. Where did I go?
Quarterly. What do we do with quarterly, Christy?
4 periods.
True, but what do we do with quarterly first on the page? Yeah, we got to divide it by 4 first.
Oh, yeah.
So technically we're on the 1% year page. What row are we going to go to?
4 or 1.
Now it's 1 year,
But it's 4 periods.
but it's 4 periods because it's 4 quarters in a year. So yeah, we're going to be on 4 periods.
So that takes it to 1.0406.
So the table equals 1.0406. Now what's the trick?
4.6%. Drop the 1, move the decimal.
Exactly. Remember that you throw away the leading 1. The decimal is your percentage. All you have to do is convert that to a percent.
God.
So APY, folks, it's as simple as looking up the right spot in the table. As long as you get to the right spot, it's just pull the number off, throw the 1 away, change what's left into a percent. Okay? But again, don't forget you apply the standard rules, right? Whatever the percent is, divide by what it's being compounded by per year. And it's always 1 year because the A stands for annual, and annual means 1 year. So, again, don't forget however many times you compound in a year to get you the number of periods. So, I know there's at least one homework problem that asks you this, so take the 3 points and run, dudes. It's good stuff. Alright? Alright, so, how about the next one? Oh, I love this question. Keep dreaming, someday I'll retire.
Join the club.
I don't really want to retire. What I want to do is retire from full-time work.
There you go.
What I want to do is to teach like 2 classes a semester. Come in here, twice a week. Just have fun, right?
Just going in to crack some jokes.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Maybe get a test every now and then. Yeah, exactly.
You
Right?
guys should read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week. Just Sam.
4 hours.
You don't want to work. You want to
No, it's 6. It's 6.
Okay.
All right, Monroe folks, it's your turn. Help me out here. What do I do?
You do principal is 50,000.
Okay.
The time is 14.
Okay.
Rate is 6%.
Okay. Raise 6%. All right. Now, what are you gonna do with those?
So page, that would be 6 divided by 2.
Okay. Good. So the page is 6% divided by 2. Okay.
Row would be 14 times 2.
14 years times 2 is 28 periods. Okay. So far, so good.
Into the second column, which is the 12.3 or 12-3.
All right. Good. So why are we going backwards?
He said I will need.
Yeah. I will need $650,000, right? There's that will need type stuff. Okay, cool. So, What was your table value?
0.4371,
371. Awesome.
and multiply that by 650,000.
650,000.
You get 284,115.
What was that? Sorry.
And 115
115. Awesome.
that they need to invest.
And so this is the sort of thing that you want to do, folks, when you're starting to invest and you start building up money. You start saying, hey, when have I built up enough? Right? If I've got this much money in my account when I'm 46 years old, in theory, if all I need is $650,000 at age 60, I don't need to add anything more to it, right? I could, in theory, just let my money grow, and I will have the $650,000 I need by just letting that $284,000 grow for 14 years. Now, how much interest am I going to earn? Where's the interest in this calculation, folks?
At the 6%. Or 3%.
Note that in any one of these questions, I can always ask you for either side of the question, or I can always ask for where's the interest in this problem, okay? Yeah, just subtract the two numbers, right? Because 284,115 is how much you're going to invest. How much are you going to take out? The 650,000, right? The difference between what you put in and what you take out, that's always interest, right? So we're at 284.15.
365, 885.
More than doubling your money over those 14 years, folks, right? And that's how compound interest works, right? This is why once you get started in this, the more you can get in there earlier, the better off life is going to be, right? I mean, if someone would have just shown me more of this when I was 20, I would have probably bought a lot less beer.
Probably wouldn't even be here.
I would be retired already. The sad thing is that some of the people that I worked with at Epic when I was there, they literally retired at 45.
Maybe they didn't drink as much.
They didn't.
They
Well,
like
they-
the cheap
they-
stuff.
They started working at Epic at age like 25. And so from 25 to 45, they just made money and invested. And it's Epic, so they're getting paid god-awful loads of money, right? And there was also the stock investment that you get with Epic when you work there. 20 years worth of stock at Epic is, its value probably went up by 2,000 or 4,000%. Yeah, so, I mean, these people made, yeah, there's a reason why they retired at 45.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm still working and looking at their Facebook posts while they're in Switzerland and all of the things. Yeah. If you invest at 25 instead of at 35, life is usually much better. Anyways.
It's too late for that.
Yeah, true. Try not to think about it too terribly much. But, again, a good type of a question. And note, folks, this is really one of the things that I am pushing for you guys to be able to do with this class. Is to look at your retirement process. And hopefully after today's, or well, probably Wednesday's class, you will actually be able to take your first mini analysis of how you can retire. And again, it really does work, and that's really the sort of the power behind this class. All right. All right. So, anyways, how about our next one? This is me tricking you, by the way. Yes, then. Note what's missing in this problem, folks. What word is missing? Compounded. If it's not compounded, folks, what is it?
Simple.
Simple, right? So please note that, yes, in the Chapter 12 homework that never happened, but that's because it was in Chapter 12. Please note on the test you will have Chapters 10, 12, and 13 all put together. So you need to remember that that I equals PRT is still here, okay? So this is just me reminding you. So what would you do to figure out the interest in this case?
Well, first, you get your principal.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wait, what am I doing?
15,500.
What am
What's the rate, folks? How am I going to write 6% for simple interest?
I?
0.06, good. And how am I going to write 4.5 years? Okay, good. Don't let me trick you into converting it. If it's 4.5 years, it's 4.5 years. So it's straight multiplication. Good old IPRT. All right, so how much interest was that? What was that for?
1,185.
41.85. Okay. Again, just don't forget simple interest. Okay. With that being said, of course, awesome problem. Sorry, I made the numbers annoying. Right, 13,724. From September 12th, 2010 until February 2011, they charged me 42.5% ordinary interest. How much did I have to pay back on February 8th, 2011? Again, if you're borrowing money, folks, it has to be simple interest. In chapters 12 and 13, we only earning interest. That's the fun part about chapter 12 and 13. So anytime you're borrowing, you know it's simple. So, what do we have to do for this problem, folks?
September 12th is 255 weeks.
September 12th is the 255th day, right? Remember, folks, you will get to use your math handbook on the test. It's got the Julian calendar in the back. Use that to your advantage, right? September 12th, if you look it up, is the 255th day. February 8th is the 39th day. Now, how do I deal with these dates when they are in different years?
Take 255, subtract that from 365.
Right. Note, 365 minus 225. Note, folks, even though it says ordinary, there are still 365 days in a year. Okay? The only time you use 360 is when you make the fraction. That's it. Okay? I saw that on a lot of the chapter 10 homeworks where people were using 360 minus the days instead of 365. That's a no-no. Okay? So there are 140 days in 2010, and then how do you add the 2011 days? Yeah, add them. Nice thing about that is that then you just add the 39.
Subtract 365 from the
Oh,
225.
Yeah, your math's a little off there.
Sorry,
How'd that happen?
255.
I was, yeah.
I did too. I'm like, where'd it go?
Sorry. 149 days. When you look up the numbers, make sure you write them down correctly.
Okay.
Don't be like me. And now what do I do with that 149 days, folks? There's where you use the 360, right?
Yep.
So then interest, 13,724 times 0.425, that lovely 42.5% interest. $2,414. Is that what everybody else got? Am I done? What did it ask?
How much you have to
How much do I have to pay? I do have to pay the interest. What else do I have to pay?
Principal.
Yeah, the $13,724 that I borrowed initially. So how much am I really going to pay on February 8th?
$16,138.09.
$16,138.09. Again, folks, please be careful calculating the number of days between dates. You can guarantee that there will be a problem that's going to ask you that on the test, okay? And you know there will be dates that span multiple years, so you're going to have to be able to, one, go from one year to the other, and other times stay within the same year. So if you stay within the same year, how do we do the last one?
Well, March 3rd is 62 days.
March 3rd is 62.
August 15th is 227 days.
227.
Subtract the first one from the second one, and you get 165 days over 365.
Note, if the dates are in the same years, folks, you can just subtract the two numbers, right? That's only if they're in the same year, okay? Again, since it does not say ordinary, it's exact. Use the 365 days in a year instead of the 360. And here I just asked for interest. So take the principal. No, 8261. Sorry about that number. What's the rate?
0.095.
0.095. Again, be careful with the interest rates, converting them to a decimal, and your lovely fraction.
370.23.
$370.23 in interest. All right. Not bad. Little review of Chapter 10 along with Chapter 12. Never a bad thing. All right. So, any questions on the Chapter 12 homework?
Get there first.
Okay.
Well, 8 and 10 kind of like messed me up a little bit because it was talking about PV.
That's just finding the present value using table 12-3.
Yeah, but that's a couple more questions. So, period used, rate used, PV factor used, and then PV amount desired at the end of the period. That's the one. Okay.
Yeah. So the rate is just basically
Yeah.
the
I got the
percent.
right. Yeah, but the one that what is the PV amount desired at the end of the period?
That's just the product of future value times the table.
Oh yeah, right. Okay.
So it's just doing the multiplication.
Oh yeah. All right. Right on there.
Hey Marshall,
Yeah.
on the last problem, we
Yes.
got a different answer than you did.
How so?
We got 354.77.
354.77.
Yeah.
That's how I got it.
Okay. Help me out, folks, when there's a minor boob. 354.77.
Yep.
And I had confirmation.
Yeah, that's why I got it.
Did we select one of the other numbers somewhere?
I forgot the number, sorry, it's my fault.
Okay.
I was just
Thank you. All right. So sorry. So we're good with chapter 8, numbers 8 and 10. Chapter 12, 8 and 10. Any others? None of the other problems were going to be mildly painful. You guys are good?
And I have one.
Okay.
It's, I gotta find
guess. Holden.
Okay. It would be number 24. I got that one, but you had to figure out number 23 too, and I thought do that one by me.
I love making you do an odd one when, you know, the even one forces you to check the odd one. Those are the best.
Thank you.
It's just like bonus homework, right? That's, you should just be ecstatic. You get to do an extra problem for nothing either, too, right? I mean, that's just fun. So what did number 24 ask?
24 says check your answer to the nearest dollar in problem number 12-20 by using compound value table 12.1.
Okay. So what does number 23 ask?
Okay, Tony Ring wants to attend Northeast College. He will need $60,000 4 years from today.
Okay.
Assume Tony's bank pays 12% compounded, interest compounded semi-annually.
Okay.
What must Tony deposit today so he will have $60,000 in 4 years?
All right. So. How much do we need to invest now? All right. So, what page are we going to go to?
Yes.
I'd like to. We're on the 6% page. What row are we going to go to? How many periods are there going to be? Because it's 4 years, twice a year, 8 periods. What table am I going to look up?
12.3.
12.3, right? Because we're going backwards. Because we need $60,000 in 4 years. So what's my table value? 6274. Multiply by the 60,000. 844. 644. And again, what does this number mean? Yeah. It's what you deposit today so that you will have 60,000. Now, how do we check that answer? Go forward, exactly, right? So number 24 is check by using this much money in 4 years at 12% compounded semi-annually, right? So do the same problem, but now go forward instead of go backward, but use the new number that you got to make sure you wind up where you started, right? So technically, what page are we on?
Same one.
Same one, yeah.
Same row. Just
Same row,
Same period.
same periods, 4 years, times 2, 8 periods. Now what's our table value this time?
1.5938.
938. Multiply by that the number that you think you need, 37,644. $59,992.01. $59,992.
I got 97.
Alright, transpose the numbers again.
And 0
And 0017.
0072. So
Yeah.
technically,
Yeah, I got 5,997.0072.
note that rounds up to technically 59,997 and a penny. So it did say round to the nearest dollar, so if you didn't put the pennies in there, I actually give it to you anyway. So essentially, we're within $3 of having our $60,000 when we walk forward. And again, note this is the whole approximate values when you use the tables, right? Since we're not doing the big long spreadsheet type thing, it's not going to be exact, so it'll be close. All right. But yeah, that's. No, I'm not going to ask you that type of a question on the test to check an answer. All of my problems are going to be straightforward. Here's a situation in life. What do we need to do? Okay? don't check situation in life sort of thing. That's, I mean, I would hope you would do that anyways, but I'm not going to ask you to, okay? All right. Any others? You're good? All right, folks. Let me have them then.
I took a picture a few days ago. Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Look bleak, kid. It's like,
Wearing my flat there. It's awesome.
I don't know about all that.
And you just gave me your chapter 10, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Those numbers everywhere.
All right.
Nice.
Monroe, folks, I will send your homeworks over tomorrow so you can get them by Wednesday. All right, so we've gotten through the first two chapters, 10 and 12, of investing. So now we're on to the new chapter, chapter 13. Where we learn about annuities. An annuity, folks, the only difference between annuity and compound interest is that when you have an annuity, instead of just investing once, you invest every period. All right? Investment where the amount being invested is repeated each period while earning compound interest. Okay? So, think it's compound interest. It's just that compound interest where instead of putting the money in once, you put it in every period. Please note that it does need to be invested every period, okay? And note that the investment and the compounding are always going to be the same period, okay? So if you're investing monthly, you will compound your interest monthly. If you're investing quarterly, you will compound your interest quarterly, okay? That's the way it works. There is no possible way to make the math work if the way you invest and the way you compound are on different periods, okay? The only way you can make that work is then using the old spreadsheet technique where you do it all by hand the long way, okay? So when we're using the tables for chapter 13, folks, realize that the investing and the compounding always the same period. So if it doesn't expressly tell you that it is, you can assume that it is. Because otherwise, this chapter doesn't make sense. Okay? So, now, before we start jumping in here, what is an annuity? What is it for, folks?
I've had one, I don't remember it was set up when I was a kid, but a certain amount was put aside until a certain age, and during that time, it was earning interest, so that it reached a certain dollar amount by the time it got paid out to me.
Okay, so one type of annuity is sort of like
Kind of like yeah.
it's a lottery, or what you can think of it as more often is deferred compensation,
That makes-
or if you've ever been in an accident, structured settlement,
Yep.
where you're going to get paid a certain amount of money every period. So while you are getting paid inside of these structural settlements or lotteries, please note, folks, that part of the process or part of what's happening that's being paid to you is the interest that the money that was initially invested is earning while it sits there. Okay?
Is that how some of the Native American tribes do? They get like, I know somebody that got 83,000 every 40 days.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening. So they have a certain amount of money that they get per year or per whatever time unit it is that they will invest into an annuity, and basically then everybody gets a check for a certain amount of money, and part of that check will be the amount of interest that the money's earning while it's going. Okay?
You know that commercial that's like, I have a structured settlement, but
Yes.
I need cash now?
Yes.
So what
J.G. Wentworth.
Yes.
are they like buying you out of your annuity?
Yes, and we are going to learn how to get bought out of an annuity. How much is an annuity worth? Basically figuring out how much is an annuity worth in dollars right now. That's the present value of an annuity.
But if you get it out before its
Sure.
maturity date, then it's not worth what it would have
Of
otherwise
course.
been.
That's the
That's
issue.
the downside
Of
of
course.
the get money down.
That's right. You always take you take the hit. Right? So
Yeah.
basically, you lose all of the interest that your money would have earned while it was sitting there, and so they're going to pay you for not getting that interest by giving you less than it's worth.
Yeah. So in some sense, you're screwed early.
Well, that's why when you win a $10 million lottery, folks, how much do they pay you up front?
After taxes.
Well, no, even before taxes, the amount a $10 million lottery is worth is only like $4 or $5 million. Yeah, because that's how much interest it earns over the life of the annuity that you get when you win a lottery, right? Because a lottery is normally paid out like $2 million a year for 10 years, right? That would be like a $20 million lottery, but they're not going to pay you that $20 million up front. It's going to be much, much less. Okay. Now, these are all lotteries or annuities where you're getting paid out of the annuity. The other types of annuities that you can have are investment annuities, where you're just building up the money, right? Classic examples of those: 401k. If you're investing in your retirement, folks, basically what you say is, every time I get paid, throw 5 or 10% of your check into a retirement account, a 401k account. That's an annuity, folks. It's just an annuity that's building up money. And then once you retire, then this annuity switches to a payment annuity, and it's actually becomes a retirement annuity where you start taking the money out, right? So that's sort of the different ways that annuities exist. Some other types of investment annuities, folks. Another one is a classic IRA. The IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. So 401ks, do you guys know when you can use a 401k?
Isn't that like when you're 60-something or over? No?
Can't you take out money on it? Borrow from it?
It's only a business-sponsored investment. You only get a 401k if your company provides it for you. If they don't have a 401k, that's when you use IRAs. If you're going to create your own individual retirement account, but because your business did not create a grouped one for your entire company. Right? Usually, the reason that 401ks are an advantage, folks, is because your company will put free money in there for you if you put some in it.
Can your 401k, can it expire or something like if you leave a job?
No,
The money can't.
no, it cannot just disappear.
I was at Stoughton Trailers, and their policy is if you have 401k with them and it's less than 5,000 when you're terminated, they cut the check and issue it to you.
That's true.
That's what happened to me at
Then you can
Gander.
just reinvest it in a
And,
different.
yeah.
Then you reinvest. So
Or you spend
you
it
can't
on-
just leave it in there, though. Usually, again, it depends on the business.
Because I had a job up in Portage at a factory, and I probably put in a 401k for, I don't know, 6 months or whatever that was. After I, my probably terminated, whatever it was.
If they didn't pay you out, it's still sitting in there.
Yeah. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's there somewhere. I mean, all you have to do is go figure out where. Usually, they will pay you out though if you didn't work very long in the business. Usually, it's you got to work there for at least a year before they won't pay you out.
Well, they said something when I left, I asked them about it, and they said that when I got to my new job, I'd have to roll it over, otherwise it would expire.
Well, and the expiration means that they would pay you out, and you would take penalties and hits for it too. So that's something you actually should look at if you work for the government, folks. Instead of it being called a 401k, it's actually called a 457 or a 403b. All right, so if you work for like the state or the government or the city or something along those lines, their retirement accounts are just slightly different names. And again, there are slightly different rules on the government IRAs versus the business IRAs, right? These IRAs, technically, well, actually it's not 59.5 now, it's 62.5. You cannot touch your 401k money until you're 62.5 without taking penalties. So that money that you invest in a 401k, the reason you put it in there, folks, is that you put it in there tax-free. You do not pay income tax on any money that you put into a 401k. That's why it's such a popular investment option for people in a business when you're working for a company, because every dollar you put in there never touches income tax. You pay the tax when you pull the money out, not when you put it in. Okay? This is the same way. There's a minor benefit for government IRAs. All you have to do is be 59.5 to take it out penalty free. Okay? So if you're working for the government, this is where I invest my money right now. And my hope is that, at 59.5 I can start pulling that money out, right? Other things to know about, folks. Roth IRAs. The difference between these guys, right? 401ks, IRAs, and 457s. These things, all of your money goes in tax-free when you put it in. A Roth IRA, you actually pay tax on the money, but all of your proceeds coming out are tax-free. So if you invest in a Roth IRA, when you retire, start taking the money out, none of this money goes towards income tax.
That's actually better.
Absolutely, right?
You put it in smaller amounts so you get the taxes smaller.
That's absolutely right. I mean, again, it's one of those where it kind of depends. You should definitely have a little bit of of both of these kinds. Somewhere you have it tax-free going in, and then if you have extra money in a year, I would always recommend starting Roth IRAs. If you have extra money at the end of the year, even if it's like $50, throw it in there and just, it's one of those standard stories, right, folks? If you've got $50 in your bank account, what's going to happen to that $50 if you let it sit there too long? Yeah, you're going to spend it, right? You're going to walk by a store and you're going to be like, there's just no way I can not have whatever that item is. And you're like, I know I've got $70 in my bank account. Cha-ching, right? Whereas if you invested that $70 and when you walked by the store and knew you had nothing, you wouldn't buy it. Again, that's just standard good investment advice when working on investing, right? So again, all of these things are tax-free going in, right? The Roth IRA is the only one that is tax-free going out. And invariably, there are times throughout the last decade or so where the government has created tax loopholes, not really loopholes, but tax avoidance steps where you can convert one of these IRAs into a Roth IRA. Costs you a bunch of money up front, but it's one of those where if you can convert some of these from 401k to Roth, when you start retiring, your tax burden is much, much less. All right? Again, it's the sort of thing that you have to be a little cautious of if you start getting to be having too much money in any one of these type of investments. I guarantee you that the wealthy people out there will maximize their Roth IRAs every year. Note that technically the most money you can put in a Roth per year is $6,000 right now. Okay? And the reason why is to stop the really, really wealthy people from putting in like $20 million inside of one of these. Because once you put the money in, right, think about all the interest you earn on $20 million. Right? If all of that money comes out tax-free, that's a lot of money. Right? And so in order to stop it being a way for rich people to hide money, they limit the most amount you can put in there so that people like us can take the most advantage out of it. Right? Because we might have up to $6,000 a year, maybe, if we're lucky. Right? Rich people, yeah, for them it's like a drop in the hat. For your individual retirement accounts, right now, the maximum in any 1 year, $18,500. Again, this is money that's also tax-free, so it's coming off the top without having tax collected on it. So there's going to be a maximum amount because the government doesn't want anybody to hide too much money from them at any one given year. All right? And again, this is for those of us that are making, less than $100,000, an $18,500 investment that's kind of a big deal, right? I mean, that would be tough for any of us to take on any given year. But if you can make it, this is a great way to hide money and not necessarily pay the tax man on it. All right? If you think about it, what's 28% of this number? Right? Somebody do 0.28 times 18,500. That's how much you're saving in taxes every year when you put money in there.
51,800.
50, you mean 5,100?
Whoops, shit. That isn't right.
Yeah. So, thanks, Allison. I'll take that. I'll just tell my tax man, no, Allison said $51,000 off my taxes.
What was the percent point?
0.28. Yeah, so that's a little bit.
$5,180.
Yeah, so that's $5,180 of tax that I don't have to pay every year because I put as much as I can into this particular account.
I like my first number better.
Yeah, me too. So anyways, part of what I'm trying to do here is just let you guys know that these things are out there and you should be looking into them, okay? Definitely one of the things that you have to look for when you're dealing with 401ks is matching. Okay, so if you're working for a company right now that offers you a 401k, at a minimum, folks, you should be putting enough to get the free match that your business is giving you. Okay? Even if it's just 3%, right? If someone offers you 3% of your salary for free, you should take it. Now, realize that to get that 3% free money, you have to put it in here, right? And you can't touch it until you're 62 and a half without paying fees. But note, when you put that 3% in, they give you 3% on top of it as free, okay? And it doesn't take much to look it up, right? It was actually, I was teaching this class 3 or 4 years ago, and I had a guy who'd been working for Best Buy. He was one of the clerks or one of the warehouse guys, and I was like, I guarantee you Best Buy has a matching 401k. He's like, no, they don't. I'm like, look it up. And so he's like, okay, fine. He pulled out his phone. And 5 minutes later, he's like, oh my God, yeah, they have a 5% match. And I'm like, are you putting 5% in? He's like, well, no. And I'm like, change it right now. He's like, I can't. I'm like, yes, you can. Do it on your phone. And there was a little button there that says, start taking 5% now. He's like, oh. He hit the button. He's like, holy crap. I'm doing it. I'm investing. And I was like, sweet, there you go. First step towards retirement.
I was going to ask, like, rich people when they put out different banks, is it just smart to leave the money that you already got in one bank in that bank because it's already earning interest there? That's why they get so many banks.
No, they do so many banks because
I know they can only insure too, right? But somebody
$200,000 per bank that you invest in.
Yeah.
And that's why they have multiple banks.
Per bank?
Yeah.
So
But
they
somebody
maxed
like
out
Floyd
each
Mayweather,
one.
for instance, like, I mean, he got $125 million in one account, so, like, obviously they can't cover
No.
nowhere near that.
Yeah, if
So
that
he got
bank-
like 8, 9 banks, so
Right.
is he doing it for like interest rates and?
Well, he's diversifying it to be safe because if a bank does go belly up and you have $120 billion in there, the government's only going to guarantee $200,000 of it.
Right.
If
I think it's 250, right?
yeah, it might be up to $250 million now, but the idea is that any amount over that, you have a chance of getting it when the bank liquidates, but you will only get a percentage. And so all of that, 12 million some odd bucks above 250,000, a good chance that he's only going to get 20 to 40% of it back. And that's why you spread it out. All right. Yeah.
What's the benefit to the employer to do the 401k though? Like,
Stay there.
just
Yeah.
401k will stay in there.
Golden handcuffs.
Yep.
Compensation.
Correct.
No, it really is. It's an incentive to keep you working there. Because if you leave, a lot of them will say, you got to transfer that out of our 401k. And now you're not getting that free 3 to 6% matching money. Like, my wife is in a business right now that matches 10%.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm just like, honey, put as much as you can.
Yep.
Right?
It's like Scott
All over.
Fuller's, they-
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like, woohoo. Okay.
And then it turns around and it costs them money, because now they've got to find someone else. They've got to pay for advertising and training and hiring a new
So,
person.
yeah, it's purely incentive to keep you working there.
So then what, the IRA, the businesses aren't involved,
Yeah.
so it's the bank benefits from just having your money sitting in there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So they get to lend it out to people. So they'll lend it out at 10 to 12%, and they'll pay you 4 to 6, right? So
Right.
that's how banks make money.
Okay.
All right. So again, folks, this is my advice right now is to start researching this if you have not already. And the number one thing is find the matching in your 401ks, right? If you have a business that has a 401k and has a match, if you are not putting in at least that much to get your free money, you should be spanked. That's all there is to it. Okay? All right, so anyways, this is just investment 101 for math and business applications, all right? When you get into your business classes, they will spend way more time talking about these sorts of things. I'm just getting you started. All right, so we're going to do investment annuities first. So, column 13-1. And technically, folks, there are two styles of annuities that you can work with when you are investing. Okay, so well, it's best just to show you, and then we'll go from there, right? So the ordinary style of an investment, and it's ordinary because it's what you and I all do when we invest in our IRAs or our 401ks, right? So when you invest the money, folks, is actually relatively important. Because if you invest your money at the beginning of the period, you get to earn interest for that entire period. Whereas in an ordinary annuity, we invest at the end of the period. And so that first period we're investing, you actually don't earn any interest because you invest at the end. Now the reason that that's ordinary, folks, is because in order for us to get money, what do we have to do? We have to work, right? And normally, do they pay you before you start working?
I haven't done that.
No, I haven't found that job yet either. They will only pay you after you have worked. So the idea is that you work for a month, and usually after you work for a month, they will finally say, oh, hey, remember that 2-week paycheck that we owed you from like 4 weeks ago? Here it is. We're finally giving it to you. All right? And in theory, what you will say is, okay, when you give me that 1 month paycheck or 2-week paycheck, take 5 to 10% out and invest it into my 401k. And so you're investing it at the end of the month or the period because you have to work first to get paid. Okay? So that's the standard style. Now, the other style that you get is an annuity due, and I'm guessing that you know what this one is, since it's the opposite of the one we just did. Instead of investing at the end, invest at the beginning of each period. And the reason we call these annuities due is because these are what trust fund babies do to invest, right? When you're a trust fund child, you have a trust fund that's going to guarantee you $75,000 every month. And so when you collect your $75,000 at the beginning of the month, what do you do with some of that $75,000? You reinvest it so that you don't have to pay a shit ton of taxes on it. And so you hide it in an annuity of some sort, and you're investing at the beginning of the period because you're basically taking an annuity that's paying you and reinvesting in an annuity that's going to defer the payment until later. Okay? And so this is just the two different styles that you run into. Okay? Now, I put a star on the first one, folks, because if you look in your tables, what is the title of the third column, 13-1?
Amount of annuity.
Amount of annuity. And folks, it's an amount of an ordinary annuity. Okay? So 13-1 is what works when you're dealing with ordinary annuities. Okay? What we are going to have to do is learn how to adjust this to deal with annuities due. Okay, there's a slight shift, and you'll see it once we do a couple of examples. You're like, oh, interesting. And once you see it, hopefully we can build up the way that we convert ordinary into annuity due. All right? So,
Do offshore accounts have annuities?
of course,
Are they,
banking
Are there
is
rates
banking is
in-
banking across the entire world.
are the rates the same or more
Yes.
than? Oh.
Essentially the same. I mean, you could find some bank accounts where the interest rates will be mildly different, but for the most part, the world interest rates are all roughly the same. Now, there are examples that are slightly different, right? So if you go to a bank in some of the more scary zones of the world where there aren't necessarily a whole lot of funds floating around, like where there's war, like in Syria right now, the interest rates for banks in Syria is very, very high. Because most people, because they're fleeing Syria, what do? They withdraw all of their money, so the banks are desperate to have some, and so they're actually paying mildly higher interest rates to keep your money there. So,
Until they get bombed and
right, yeah,
then you're shit out of luck.
yeah, to some degree, yes, but that's why, right? Okay, so anyways, let's just do a couple of examples, one with ordinary and one with annuity due, and you'll see the difference. Okay, so let's do an ordinary annuity, all right? So let's see, let's keep it relatively simple, all right? So let's suppose we're going to invest, let's say, $2,000 each year for 4 years at whatever. Let's suppose it's simple. 5% compounded annually interest. And note, when you invest and when you compound, always the same. Okay, so we're investing $2,000 a year, we're compounding yearly. Okay? If the compounding was semi-annually, then we would be investing $2,000 twice a year, because that's semi-annual. Okay? So realize that those two things are always the same. Alright? So, we need to do this the long way first, because the long way builds character, and you guys all need more character.
I'm content with what I have.
Alright, so, how many periods are in this investment?
1,
No,
4.
4 years, right? Period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4. Now, we're doing this ordinary investment. So when are we investing the money, folks?
At the end.
At the end, okay? So technically, folks, in the first period, how much money do we have invested at the beginning of the period?
2,000. Nothing. 0.
Nothing, right? Okay. There's nothing in it yet, because we haven't put anything in yet. Okay? So, technically, what's our rate that we earn in that first year?
5%.
Technically, it's 5%. And technically, how much time goes by?
1 year.
So how would we calculate the interest? 0.05 times 1 times
Oh,
0. How much interest do I earn in the first year? Damn it. Okay, but what do I do at the end of the year?
I put in the $2,000.
There we go. Okay. Awesome. And then this is the way annuities work, folks, is that every year what you do is you take the principal you started with, add the interest that you earn, and add the investment that you earned. Okay? So if I add 2,000 to nothing and to nothing, I've got how much money starting the next period?
2,000.
Okay, so now we finally start earning interest, okay? And the way you can see that this is true in all of your tables, folks, look at the first row of every 13-1 column. Just look at the first row. Flip the page, look at the first row. What's always the top number? 1. Because if you invest this money for one period, if you invest it at the end, and then you stop investing, how much interest did you earn if you invested it at the end of the period and that was it? None. And so you would earn 0 interest and you just have your money back after you gave it. Okay? So
Sounds like the banking system.
all right, so anyways, okay, folks, so we've invested our $2,000. Now we finally get to start earning interest, right? So what's the rate for the next year? 0.05. How much time is going by? Now, how much interest do we earn? $100. We finally earn some interest. Yay! And what do we do at the end of the period? Don't forget that every period we invest $2,000. Now add all of the money up, right? The investment plus the interest plus the principal we started with, $4,100 to start the third period. And again, rinse and repeat. This is the way annuities work. It's just like compound interest. Once you see the pattern, you're just going to go, okay, I see it. Chug, 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 all the way to the bank, right? That's the whole point. So the rate's 0.05, the time is a year. How much interest do we earn in the third period? $205. $200 from the two $2,000 investments. $5 from the $10 of interest earning interest, right? Or the $100 of interest earning interest the next period. And what do we do at the end of the third period?
Add 4,100 to the 2,205 to the 2,000.
That's right. Add all the numbers, except I should write 205. Whoop. What was that?
6,305.
$6,305. Rate and time?
4,505.
Everything's still the same. How much interest in the final period? 315.25. Note, folks, what do I still do at the end of that period?
Add another 2,000.
Good. Don't forget you're still investing the $2,000 every period, even though it's the end of the last one. And so technically, what's the future amount that I'm going to have?
$8,620.25.
$8,620.25. Is that what you said? There's the old school long way, folks. It's essentially exactly what we're doing with compound interest. The only difference, you're throwing extra money in there every period. And note that the numbers get much bigger, much faster. That's the whole point, right? I mean, if you're investing every period, then the money's going to grow not only faster, but that much faster because you're throwing more fuel to the fire, right? Flames. You're in a ring of fire, folks, right? Burns, 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 like a ring of fire, all right? So that's the ordinary annuity because we're investing at the end. Now, really fast, before we run out of time, Let's do right below it, the annuity due. Same investment, except now we're investing at the beginning instead of the end. Okay? And this is kind of, I'm going to do this just so that you can see and to be safe. Note where I wrote the investment portion. Where did I write it? At the bottom, because I was always investing at the end. In an annuity due, when do I invest?
At the beginning.
So where am I going to write my investment?
At the beginning.
At the top. Good idea. Right? So here, I'm always going to be investing 2K, right? So, when I'm doing an annuity due, how much do I have at the beginning of the period?
2,000 to start
I've
with.
already got the 2,000 in there, right? Because I've already invested it. Rate and time are still the same. So let's stay at 0.05 and we're doing this annually. So how much interest do I earn in the first year? $100. Now, here's where we got to be a little bit cautious, right? So what am I going to do to get to the next period?
Take the original 2,000, add the 100, and add the next 2,000.
Yeah, don't forget that at the beginning of the next period, you're throwing that $2,000. So you're really adding the $2,000 again. It's just that you're adding it at the beginning of the next period instead of the end of the prior period. That's all. Okay? So my principal here is 4,100. And note, folks, already, what do you notice when you look up at where you just were? Where do you see 4,100?
Period 3.
Period 3. What period are we in?
2.
Interesting. So, how much interest do I earn in this 205? And note, folks, did you look that up or did you just cheat? Yes, exactly. That's exactly what you should have done, Zach. I totally agree, right? Don't calculate it again. You already did it once.
Gotta work smarter, not harder.
And what's going to be the principal in my next period?
6305.
And what do you notice up above you?
6305.
It's for periods, you're always period.
Period 4, principal 6305.
Uh-huh. Here the period is 6305. So note, folks, that essentially we're just dragging behind a year, right? Or we're ahead a year, depending on how you look at it, right? And this is why you should expect that there's a way to convert from ordinary to annuity due, because the numbers are always all the same. There's just a little bit of shift. So, how much interest did I earn in that third period, folks?
315.25.
Uh-huh, because that's what we earned in the fourth period over there. What's my P to start my fourth period?
$8,620.25.
And where does that number come from? How much we wound up with in the ordinary annuity, right? And the reason why, folks, is how many times did we earn interest in the ordinary annuity? 3 times, right? Because we didn't earn any interest in the first period. In our annuity due, right now, how many times have we earned interest? 3 times, but technically we get 1 extra period of interest. That's the difference between ordinary annuities and annuities due, is this extra period of interest at the very end, right? So what's the interest that we get in the very end of our annuity due?
43101.
And so what's our future value of the ordinary annuity?
$9,051.26. If you add the extra 2,000 on it, you were gonna invest.
Nope, because we're at the end of that period, not the beginning of the next one. Yeah, so it's just the 9,000, what did you say? 51.26. But this is the idea behind it, folks, is that there's a definite connection, right? You can see that the columns basically keep repeating themselves, and all we're going to have to do on Wednesday is figure out how do we use the numbers to make sure that that connection works and that we can calculate the value using the tables, okay? So we'll start on class on Wednesday by using the tables, right?
And no test Wednesday, is that the case?
Nope, the test is next week Wednesday. So whatever that, that'll be like the 10th or something?
That's the stuff, so. Today.
Oh, it's today the 2nd?
The tenth.
Oh, the 1st, I'm sorry.
Maybe the tenth.
Today's-
Right, yeah, today's the 1st, so Wednesday's the 3rd.
It's the 10th.
So next Wednesday is the 10th, folks. Test 3 over chapters 10, 12, and 13 will be on Wednesday of next week. Yeah, you will get a note. Yeah. And you get the
Only because you used to add.